Kha'Zix, while Cloud9 are happy to play Kha'Zix in the jungle on Ku, JWoww is even more happy to play Kha'Zix up in that top lane after we saw that miracle casual steal yesterday in game number 2.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, and a new year, a new season means new teams and of course new picks, so we are seeing Kha'Zix in a couple of these games, but it has actually been banned out because, well, there's several competent players in this game already, so best to just keep that off the board. Again, Yasuo is something we've seen from both of these teams, so we could also be seeing that in this game, so we'll just see what rounds out the rest of these bans. In fact, you already would have because I'm casting over the stream, so I'm going to be a couple seconds behind.
Yeah, we've already had a Shyvana locked in for Cloud9, and we saw earlier today and yesterday Cloud9 very confidently giving away Shyvana and Mundo to their opponents because they have this counter pick of Trundle in their arsenal for that Shyvana Dr. Mundo combination. Now, picking Shyvana first means either they are just going to prioritize a slightly different team composition with the strong pick of Shyvana, or they don't want to let a team the level of Lololol have both strong picks because perhaps they're not overly confident that it'll work 100% of the time.
Yeah, and by picking Shyvana first, okay, a Lololol decides to pick up Mundo here, Adromne does nothing stopping him from picking Trundle again, then putting Shyvana in the jungle, and then having that matchup anyway. So there is no downsides to picking Shyvana first, especially when you're the team of Cloud9, so we're just going to have to see exactly what Lololol decides to put into their setup.
Yeah, of course. Unsurprisingly, we see that Lee Sin has been picked up. Another high-profile pick for both of these teams, actually. They want to take that away from Ku because Ku is fantastic on Lee Sin, but nevertheless, Lololol will be happy with that in their arsenal, alongside Thresh. And then Cloud9 following up with the Gragas that we've seen time and time again from them, and Vi. So it will be Shyvana in the top lane, so no Trundle, I would expect, in this game. They are, however, going for far more meta picks.
Yeah, we typically don't always see Thresh all the time, but that doesn't mean that they instantly pick out the Mundo, and therefore they can't just say, okay, easy, we can just go Trundle. So, as you said, they go with the meta picks, which are much more solid. It doesn't necessarily mean that Lololol have to pick up the Mundo, which would be funny, because I think it's one of the first times in any game that you would ever see a Mundo not banned and also not picked, but it would actually make sense in this scenario. So, Thresh being picked up as a more conservative pick, but again, Dialed on Thresh is absolutely insane, so it just is comfort for these players so far in the picking phase.
Yeah, and it looks comfort all around, because I'm pretty sure yesterday we saw JWoww playing Jax in game number 1, and he's locked it in again. Well, Morden's locked it in. I have a feeling that's going to go up to JWoww for the top lane. Jax jungle, not something that is seen commonly at all. They also lock in Caitlyn. Caitlyn's an AD carry that every AD carry or marksman would be comfortable on because of just how straightforward her kit is.
Yeah, and she works so well in so many matchups, specifically against the kind of big pick at the moment, which is Lucian. You just pick Caitlyn, and then it works because Lucian cannot get in range to have that amazing trading potential. So we might see a Lucian here just to even up the lane. We might see something else, but it would be one of the safer picks against Caitlyn before that bottom lane from Cloud9.
Yeah, and Cloud9 actually just answer with the Lucian alongside Karma. We saw this in game number 1 earlier today against MYM, where they ended up picking both. We were discussing how the two don't synergize as perfectly well as the Sivir bot lane does, but Lucian does very well with Karma and Karma's kit overall. So the synergy is not absolutely perfect, but it's still incredibly strong. And perhaps Lololol are looking to pick up an Orianna, which, as Ocelote has played time and time and time again, one of his most comfortable champions.
Indeed, and it's no surprise we're once again seeing Gragas and Orianna mid lane, something we're seeing basically all the way through the start of Season 4 and Season 4 pre-season. So not anything surprising in the middle lane. It's going to be fairly slow until level 6, then you have a little bit of kill potential, but it's mostly going to just be farming that out apart from the jungler presence. And when you have Vi and Lee Sin of course will win that trade against Vi. Vi loses against most junglers, but they will probably be putting the pressure onto that middle lane as Shyvana doesn't have the most gank potential.
It's kind of not funny or strange. It's weird to see a team so heavily focused on their playstyle that it really doesn't matter what your opponents pick. And this is what Cloud9 Europe are showing us in every single game, is they love this skirmish style, movement speed based, non-team fight centric playstyle with the champions like Gragas that can really disrupt people, make sure you get one pick with Vi, and then Karma allows you to really speed around the team fight area to make sure they're split up so that you're actually fighting more like 2v2s at one time rather than a 5v5.
Yeah, and this was very prevalent when they had the Trundle pickup in the last game stress in the last series, where they really couldn't go for these 5 versus 5 team fights, but if you split them up into like a 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, Trundle starts to shine and the rest of the picks are just incredibly good. You're going to be landing that Gragas barrel on all 3 of those people in that skirmish. So again, solid pickups from both of these teams.
And I cannot wait to get into this game. We're heading into game number 1 of a best of 5 here in the Scan Invitational, powered by Netgear, Creative Sound Blaster, and Be Quiet. We'll be back. Welcome back. It's game number 1 of the grand finals here in the Scan Invitational, powered by Creative Sound Blaster, Netgear, and Be Quiet. And it looks like Lololol are looking to be aggressive in the beginning of this game. I am Stress alongside Pulse, who I believe is having a couple of little spectator issues, but it looks like Dude is looking for Voidal. They don't quite land the hook, but get the flash out of Voidal, so that will leave the bottom lane for Cloud9 a little vulnerable in the early game, so good early play there by Lololol. Now, Pulse, are you with me in game?
I'm not yet. I'm still attempting my best to get into this action, but the client is not playing.
Okay, well, hopefully you can join through perhaps an alternative method, maybe being able to spectate through LOL Nexus or something like that. But, however, we are in game number 1, so let's keep things rolling on here. Looks like after that initial part of aggression, that Cloud9 are going to set up their defensive start, as we've seen out of them quite a few times. Lololol tend to be the team that are the ones to change things up. They've been a little more aggressive in the early game, and actually look like they want to do a lane swap here, putting Caitlyn and Thresh up towards the top lane. And this is not something we've seen on stream all tournament long. We didn't get a chance to broadcast Lololol earlier in the day as they played against Super Team EU Kappa, but I wonder how those games went. They went 2-0 against them. This is the first lane swap that we've had here for the Scan Invitational, because it's not something that is done so often anymore. After the changes to turrets, they got extra resistances earlier on in the game, and it just makes the 2v1 lanes a little bit more difficult. We'll see how this favors both teams. Any news, Pulse?
Not at the moment. I'm probably going to be right back for a couple minutes and see if I can get something sorted.
Sure, not a problem, as I will continue to take us through this early game. Now, a common strat that we've seen when implementing these 2v1s is that the top laner will roam around the jungle for the first few camps with the jungler. You can see that Cloud9 are doing that already on the Wolf camp. They didn't choose to put JWoww alongside Lee Sin because Lee Sin started up in the top side of the jungle, so it's a little bit more difficult to do that. So JWoww is going to be still level 1, whereas you can see Odamna will have a little bit more experience from roaming around the jungle here. JWoww does hit level 2, so we'll be able to farm a little bit more confidently under that tower, but the red start from Morden allows him to appear in lane here at around the 3-minute mark. This is a very end of Season 3 style of jungle route here with that 3-minute gank here to defend that bottom tower. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, you can see Forbidden will go aggressive, forces the shield out of Ocelote, but the trade is about even on the health. Still haven't had Odamna return to that top lane, and rather than pushing heavily up in the top, Caitlyn and Thresh really just have kind of tried to freeze the wave a little bit and farm out as much as possible. And that's a little bit strange from a champion with the pushing potential of Caitlyn. Normally, with a strategy like that, you'd end up pushing through very early, but because Odamna hasn't been in lane, they can't force him to sacrifice anything without shoving a giant wave with that cannon wave like they just did. So that's why their delayed push got pushed up. But the burnout from Odamna burns through the minion wave and manages to really just delay that push. So the 2v1 isn't a fast push strategy right now, it's more to deny Odamna's Shyvana. As I wait perhaps for Pulse to rejoin me in this game, hopefully he will be able to get in. We see Ku has joined Odamna in the top lane to just make sure that he's safe. Hook doesn't quite land out of Dude in this instance, as Morden looking aggressive in the bottom lane. And these junglers are very similar, both like to play aggressive in the early game and really like to put the pressure onto the lanes, as Morden will sit down in this lane alongside JWoww. And Ku normally the one playing Lee Sin, but Morden managed to take it away from him in this game. You see Ocelote just checking another barrel in mid. He's got to be careful he doesn't take too many of them, but Ku maybe looking to go aggressive in the top lane. Hook doesn't quite land. They grab the minion instead. And Cloud9 just want to take things a little bit more relaxed in this early goings. No early first bloods like we've normally seen in the Cloud9 games when Ku is running that Lee Sin. These lanes are really just at a stalemate in the 2v2s right now. The junglers have spent so much time that they've been getting experience and pushing pretty much an eek, really, once you hit level 6, that those ultimates become available and the massive amounts of damage come out from the champions. And I'm kind of hoping that Pulse might be able to shed some more light, as Forbidden hit 6 first, so that race to 6 has been won by Cloud9.
Yeah, I'm completely unable to get into Spectator at the moment, so I'm still trying solutions, but it's not working out.
Okay, I will continue on the solo cast for game number 1 of this, but hopefully we'll be able to get you in for the rest of the series. There goes the shockwave out from Ocelote to keep himself alive, and the shield tries to get more damage on, but not quite able to get it. He was forced to use the barrier there, so that's a big cooldown that has been used. Forbidden won't have the explosive cask either, but finally that push up in the top lane from Caitlyn and Thresh is starting to do its work. They hook in Odamna. I don't think they'll be able to kill him, but another wave or so of minions should be enough to pick that up. It looks like we've had a little bit of a problem with our Spectator client ourselves, so hopefully we can get back to that fairly shortly. If production could give me an update on what's going on, that would be great. Apologies for that little hiccup, guys. We are back in game number 1 here of the Scan Invitational Grand Finals. A couple of little tech issues just rearing their heads, unfortunately, for one of the first times in the weekend. But meanwhile, while you guys unfortunately couldn't see it, Cloud9 did pick up the first dragon of the game. Still no kills and very even on gold, with that first tower being picked up in the top lane by Triple Lol. So fairly even, and this is something that we've seen from a lot of the challenger teams all weekend long, because all of these teams seem to go very even with Cloud9 and Triple Lol for the very early game. And then it gets to the team fights, and Cloud9 start to accelerate through. They start getting objectives. The same with Triple Lol. They're very similar teams, and I'm wondering how that's going to play out as we head through this mid-game, because you can't both be better than your opponents at team fighting. In the end of all things, one team has to be the victor in the team fights, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with such high-profile teams. Again, I am solo casting this one by the sounds of it. Hopefully Pulse will be able to rejoin us in game number 2. But this is the Scan Invitational Grand Finals, powered by Netgear, Creative Sound Blaster, and Be Quiet. Morton has found his way into this bottom lane. No wards have spotted him out yet, but if he crosses to the next bush, they will. They're looking for the hook. They grab onto John, and Flay goes backwards. The box used. There's the follow-up from the resonating strike, but they're not able to follow up with the damage. That won't result in the first kill of the game. And again, these teams go back to a little bit of a stalemate here. However, in mid lane, Ocelote might be in trouble. Vault Breaker comes through, Assault and Battery. Shockwave doesn't hit the mark, and that's the first blood here for Cloud9. Can Triple Lol answer with a turret in the bottom lane? It looks like Cloud9 are going to say no. Really nice plays there out from Ku to make sure they got that kill onto Ocelote, put him in a position that they weren't really able to pick up anything there. The Shockwave didn't actually complete the animation for gun, but didn't get anybody from that. It's still on cooldown, so it's still available. So next time that happens, he may be able to get a little bit better of a Shockwave, but they've got to be careful down in this bottom lane that Morden doesn't find his way in. They've got good wards up in Tribush to make sure he can't sneak in through the Tribush. But it looks like Cloud9 are just playing a little too safe for now. They've got that extra movement speed from Voidal's Inspire when it's mantraed to make sure they can get away from any harm. Let's take a look at the itemization here. Looks like Gragas has been able to finish that Athene's Unholy Grail here, as he is about 500 gold up on Ocelote from that extra CS and just a little bit of the global gold that is in the difference between the two teams. That's why he's finished the Athenes, and Ocelote not quite able to. That assist as well will go quite a long way. However, at top lane, you can see Shyvana, as Shyvana does, building towards that Sunfire Cape. That'll help her scale against Jax for now. Ocelote takes the Explosive Cask, but it actually pushes him closer to safety than it does into harm's way. And yeah, Shyvana going for that Sunfire Cape will be looking to scale against Jax a little bit, but everybody knows that it's difficult to stop a Jax as he heads later on into the game. He just becomes a bit of a monster dueling anybody, so they have to try and shut Jax down a little bit more, although that top lane is a very difficult lane to get pressure in, especially with that top tower down already. And I believe Pulse has managed to get his way into the game, so you can join us for this epic grand finals.
I have indeed, and this is one of the only times where technical malfunctions actually helped me out. After our stream was reconnecting to the game, I could join on top of him, so it worked out.
Awesome. I am rather glad to hear that, as I get my casting partner back from the weekend.
Outstanding. So fill me in with what's been happening for the rest of this game.
We've had a kill and a dragon in favor of Cloud9, and the turret has gone in favor of Triple Lol. We had a lane swap early on with Caitlyn and Thresh going up to the top lane, stacking a big wave, but here comes more action in the top.
Yeah, Q already aggressing onto that Jax once again with the Shyvana ultimate coming across. That'll be Dragon's Descent. Q trying to just lead the charge onto Jay, while we'll be knocking him blind through the bush and picking up another kill for Cloud9.
Just getting a message over to our production so we can get the champions in the right order again, because when you rejoin the game it resets them, so unfortunately it's not quite there in the right order quite yet, but we are still at a 2-0 game here. Both kills going over to Vi, so these consistent lanes out of all of Cloud9's composition just really kind of ending up really well so that Ku can get those kills. None of the lanes are that far behind, if any. They're ahead in top, ahead in mid, and behind ever so slightly on CS. So Vi is able to get these kills and get those ganks off very easily.
Yeah, and Q was also able to pick up the red buff at the same time on top of that gank from on top of Jax, so then we'll be donating the blue buff away and should be able to rotate towards his own red. So Morden's going to be even further behind, and as a Lee Sin player, it's very difficult to catch back up again, because you generally do become like a utility bot in teamfights, getting that right pick at the start of the fight, but if you do not have the damage to offer, because generally you'd like to get a couple kills early, so at least your damage remains relevant for a couple more minutes.
And that's one of the byproducts of that 2v1 swap that I was going to mention earlier, but unfortunately didn't quite have the time in the game to do it. That doing that lane swap meant that Morden had to sit in the solo lane with JWoww, and lost all of the advantage that Lee Sin has over Vi in the early game, where Lee Sin desperately wants to trade in the jungle as much as possible, and Vi cannot take that. Now Vi is at 2-0, and that kind of trade won't go in Lee Sin's favor anymore.
It's also interesting because Shyvana Jax is the lane we don't really see very much of. You just generally see the big power top laners like Mundo, like Shyvana, who do very similar things, but Jax becomes a bigger threat in terms of damage, while Shyvana has a bigger threat in terms of like dueling potential and tankiness. But Jax will actually begin to outscale Shyvana later on until the game, and when you have that split pusher, it might be difficult at some point for O'Donnelly to stay on top of that, but the extra kill in that early game because of that gank will help matters.
Ku was looking around for the gank that they got on Ocelote earlier. Will start to rotate around to the bottom. This is one of the first times he's had his presence here.
Yep, Q using a Sultan Battery immediately onto Yuki, and not the Death Sensor, but the Dark Lantern was not enough to keep him alive. Diode will be flashing over his own box, and Culling just tags him as he escapes his own lane, but Morden and his ally of Ocelote are unable to reach that tower in time, and that will be dropping to Cloud9.
Yeah, that's another tower in, well, the first tower in favor of Cloud9, of course. It was taken earlier by Triple Lol, but Forbiven has had that Inspire put on him, is looking for another kill. Cask not available. Ocelote does manage to get out alive, but Ocelote has been under quite a lot of pressure from Ku and Forbiven. They've made it somewhat of a point to make sure that Ocelote is as uncomfortable on Orianna as possible.
Yeah, and Cloud9 have just picked up small advantages all over the board, and Vi has been soaking up those kills as every gank has happened. So they've not only taken the dragon, but they will be able to maybe look for this kill. And so Ocelote Dialed has actually interrupted the Vault Breaker, flash out of the shockwave, and will indeed whiff. So that's a big ultimate off cooldown.
Yeah, and that's the second one actually out of Ocelote that hasn't quite hit the mark. Of course, the first one didn't quite go off, died before the animation completed. So the first one that really wasn't quite in the right place, but there was a flash out from C9, so it's worth burning that Orianna ultimate for the flash anyway, because the follow-up wasn't quite there. So it was actually good that Ocelote used that shockwave.
Yeah, of course, and that early kill and the extra CS advantage from Shyvana is making it very difficult for Jax to go toe-to-toe this early on to the game before he gets the itemization, and is actually drawing Morden up to the top lane to try and stop that push. And Odoamne, he's just gone for the Golems, wait until Lee Sin recalls, and will probably just carry on pushing again. So all the threat of Morden early game has been completely mitigated.
Yeah, and it's just one of the byproducts, as we said, of that early 2v1. Now, normally when you do a 2v1, or at least it used to be when you 2v1, it was either to really put somebody behind or to push a tower incredibly quickly and get people behind that way rather than just denying CS and experience. The really smart rotation, he was able to get that early, hasn't ahead, and Cloud9 are looking to skirmish.
Yeah, and that's one of the first jungle, sporting a double longsword and the Doran's blade. Again, Odon moving on to Jay while deep striking out and the ultimate's might. And Morden is just trying to claim some of his jungle.
And this is they're in their opponent's jungle with the 3 outer towers down, and Ku again is looking to go aggressive onto Morden.
It apparently doesn't matter what Ku is playing, he will still try and counter jungle you. Odoamne is actually being outtraded by Jax, but being on such low HP, that is going to happen. Ku still sticking around the area, making sure Morden is just uncomfortable in his own jungle.
And I'm glad we're seeing Ku go back to this aggressive style. We saw it in the very first game that Cloud9 played in the tournament. Ace in the hole! Oh, miscommunication didn't quite let them block that.
Yeah, Forbidden has arrived though, and Dialed will be dropping the friendship tester, as I like to call it. Was not proven this day. Ku will be trying to escape in the middle lane, and indeed will get out of there with Vault Breaker.
A good escape by Ku there as Ocelote used the shockwave, wasn't quite able to pick up the kill. And Cloud9 have themselves an advantage. Dragon is coming up in about a minute and 30, I believe. It has been Triple Lol that has got both dragons in this game. One when we were off the screen. Actually, I believe the first one was Cloud9, was when we had the disconnect. So a dragon apiece so far, but the gold is heavily right now in favor of Cloud9. They're 4 kills to 1 up with an extra 2 turrets, but they can't be too confident right now.
Yeah, and Blue was taken away using the culling, and it wasn't actually the best damage from the barrel from Forbidden. So in the next minute, that's going to be denied from Ocelote, making it even more difficult to go for this fight.
And we've seen time and time again that Cloud9 really just want that skirmish team fight. They don't want the centered team fight on 5v5. They want a 2v2 and a 3v3, or some different composition of split fights. They do not want to take your headlong team fights. So Cloud9 are already setting up for that. They've got great wards out looking for picks. You can see already the top jungle is littered with Cloud9 vision, and really that is just what allows them to make plays like this. Again,
Jay Wild using the leap and the flash, but doesn't decide to, in fact, QD still decides to use Assault and Battery, and maybe not that all that useful in that situation, but 10 seconds left on Dragon. We'll have to see whether Cloud9 want to go for it or not. They definitely have the capability to stress, but they don't want to clump up for Orianna. Morden Jay Wild find themselves a couple intruders in their own jungle. Odoamne is very mobile, has the Dragon set still available. Vault Breaker's being charged up, and this collapse was not successful.
Yeah, it's difficult for Triple Lol to be confident that the rest of Cloud9 aren't around. They have some vision on mid and the Wraith area, so they knew they weren't straight there, but with the mobility of Odoamne and Vi, they're able to get out over the Baron and then really reposition to a better place that Cloud9 want to fight at. They take down the Dragon, Still quite a low kill game here compared to some of our other games, but Ku is maybe looking for one for himself.
Yeah, Ocelote chunked down to about 50% HP with literally all the Vault Breaker and Denting blows by itself, and Jarman also picking up the kill, or almost picking up the kill. Yuki may indeed fall. Ku, aggressing force, does not quite yet have the Assault and Battery as it was used in the top lane.
And Ku just wants to fight. His aim right now is fight as much as possible, because on Vi, that's, well, it's not that often that you see a Vi early on wanting to fight, but those early kills have gone so far to this point in the game that there's a lead in CS for Vi in the jungle over Lee Sin and 3 kills, and that's just something that has really been set up by these consistent lanes out of Cloud9, and it's something that's very reminiscent of North American Cloud9. Their lanes are winning, it allows their jungler to completely control the pace of the game.
Yeah, and see Yuki just taking away that white in the jungle, but 4-1 and a significant gold lead to Cloud9. I mean, they are firmly in their head. Ahead, I should say, but they do want to accelerate this game, make sure they continue to kind of push in these turrets, push in these objectives, because that's a very strong, not only team fighting composition, but late game composition from the hands of Triple Lol, because Jax will only get stronger. Orianna changes into like a Lee Sin, and also Dialed with the initiation and catching potential from Fresh, makes it very tricky the later on this game goes.
Yeah, we discussed yesterday with Lee Sin his limitations in the late game, but Ku has found himself Ocelote.
Yes, indeed. Assault and Battery has been used, and Shockwave in return. 3 versus 2 will be the matchup, and Yuki has arrived, making it a 4 versus 2. Shutdown comes out, and Ku being a little bit too aggressive, reminiscent of the last series.
Shades of their games against MYM, where on Kha'Zix, Ku would just go as aggressive as possible and end up dying a couple of times for it. So they get the shutdown gold there. So that'll go a little bit of the way now to making Yuki a little more potent in these fights. Has the CS lead on the AD carries already. So they've got to be careful they don't give away needless kills here, as Cloud9 are in control, but it is a very close game between these two. Now, Lee Sin in the later fights normally doesn't have as much presence as you'd expect from the mid game, because he really doesn't have the damage, but the ball delivery system with Orianna might make that a little bit more potent, that it's not just the kick anymore for Lee Sin.
Yeah, at least they have some form of initiation. Dragon Descent using the top lane. Ignite has come down from Jay, while following up the Leap Strike and the empowered auto attack. This is very tight indeed. It's going to come down to the wire. Ignite will actually take off. Both of these laners will fall.
Ignite and the minions managed to take that one down, but you can see it's already close between Jax and Shyvana, and that'll only get worse in favor of Jax.
Indeed, he's already picked up his Trinity Force, well on his way to the Blade of the Ruin King, and no doubt he'll look for the Guardian Angel after that, which is the most common of Jax builds nowadays, and will continue to do so because it is still ridiculous, because you can build 2 damage items, go Guardian Angel, and still be absurdly tanky.
And just get as much lifesteal as possible from that. I mean, Jax just doesn't die. He's an absolute machine in the later parts of the game. Blade of the Ruin King is pretty much an item that fits Jax to a T, so wouldn't be surprised to see that finished up fairly shortly. You can see Bilgewater Cutlass and the dagger already in place. So Cloud9 still playing aggressive, even though they've been trading fairly evenly recently. Dragon not due up for another couple of minutes yet, so not really those global objectives to fight over. They've only really got the ability to siege, and their siege composition isn't the best.
Yeah, and this blue buff is just being juggled back and forth, but you can see Cloud9 are going to take every opportunity they can to try and force themselves a fight, because that's where they are definitely strongest, and it's very difficult at this stage in the game for Triple Lol to say, okay, let's everyone 5-man group around this blue buff and try and defend it. So Cloud9 are going to use that opportunity to try and create a skirmish, but alas, it didn't quite work out by cutting the vision.
And one of the problems that we've seen with teams going against Cloud9 is the ability to stall out the acceleration from Cloud9. They've been very good at rotating around the map, taking objectives as they please, but it looks like Triple Lol are just a little bit more experienced and know that they want to draw this game out to a point that Jax is going to be so unstoppable alongside Caitlyn and a massive shockwave from Orianna that it doesn't matter whether Cloud9 are attempting to out-rotate them, because they're just going to be able to be in the positions to extend this game later and later.
And Triple Lol really are applying the brakes, just sitting in their jungle, placing down the defensive wards, making sure if there is like a 3-man incursion, then they can just pick them off and go for the fight. They're moving so slowly through this game, they might get a parking ticket.
That's not something you want on Summoner's Rift. I've heard the fees can be rather large, or they send Baron Nashor after you. But Jax this time not trading quite so well. Here comes Morden.
Indeed, 2 versus 1 trade, but Shyvana is very, very strong. Flash comes out, he's already slowed from the Blades of Rune King. Dragon's Rage back, but he's still burning from the burnout damage from Odonne. He will 1v2. He just doesn't care at this stage. We've spoken about how strong of a duelist Jax is, but Shyvana will 1v2.
Shyvana is still rather strong at this point. Culling has been used in mid, and I'm sure Cloud9 are going to pick up another turret.
Indeed, and that, in fact, is going to drop very quickly. I'm surprised you didn't take the chance to use the Kate and Vi joke, but Morden gets blown up by an explosive cask in the top lane.
And they may take one more turret from this up in that top lane, and this is what we mean about Cloud9, is they are rotating well now, and the positioning wasn't quite there from Triple Lol. They had Jax and Morden up in the top lane trying to deal with Shyvana, which left middle tower completely open for Cloud9. And Cloud9 are a team that are no strangers to a Baron call earlier in the game than this by about 10 minutes. But it looks like they're going to take a page out of Fnatic's playbook. But Dude has seen that one time too many.
Yeah, wishing that they could take the Lantern onto Dial, that would have been fantastic. But either way, they will reveal them and they'll go back to farming. But Cloud9 can really rotate through these lanes so quickly with the Defiance Shield from Karma, also the coin, and just being generally mobile on all of these characters. They can instantly get to a lane that is struggling, which is what we saw top lane. Blow up Lee Sin, take the tower.
Dragon had spawned and was fallen by Cloud9. Of course, that's something they've been oh so good at all tournament long. We talked about their rotations, their global objective control, and tower control, and they're just continuing that here. A little blip there from Triple Lol meant that Cloud9 got quite a lot from that, and now the gold lead is far bigger than it has been before. 6,000 gold is the lead overall. And that transitions into a few key things. You can see the Void Staff has been picked up onto Forbiven, and this is a choice that Forbiven has consciously made in multiple games in the tournament. He has foregone level 2 boots to pick up the Void Staff and the Rabadons after the Athene's Unholy Grail, where his lane opponents seem to be far more favouring the level 2 boots, even sometimes upgrading with Home Guard to level 3 Sorcerer's Shoes. And that's something we've seen from Ocelote here. It just means the damage is going to be a little more potent from Gragas.
Yeah, the top lane is going at it once again, but Jackson's already used his counter-strike. Flame Breath comes across, does not quite singe the tail of JWoww as he retreats back to lane, but he does know that Lee Sin is coming back up there, so Odonne has to be a little bit careful, but of course Ku is in there as well.
Cloud9 already anticipating the answer from Morden, and Ku just chasing him out from his jungle. Ku does have a level advantage, but Forbiven gets engaged on.
Ku in the right place at the right time, gonna block that ace in the hole. Knockback, just using the explosive cask for its utility, and will be getting out of dodge.
And that's how good this team composition is for escaping. You saw the Mantrad Inspire there used by Voidal to make sure they could get away after the Gragas cask. There was no way of Triple Lol from chasing that one on, so great reaction to getting caught there out of Cloud9.
Yeah, and Karma's got to be one of the most difficult champions to cast because all her skills change name when they've been mantrad, and it's not like she changes stance so you know exactly what they are. Voidal just walking through the jungle and putting down the wards, just playing it chill, but they do need to start pushing this game into overdrive.
Yeah, of course, Defiance, not Inspire. So close.
Yeah, well, it can be Inspire, but it's difficult to see in a pinch.
However, a team that are not in a pinch is Cloud9 right now. They have themselves the lead, 6 kills to 3. 3 towers up over Triple Lol as well. And this is the point where Cloud9 start to rotate to Baron, and you could see Voidal and Forbiven were already looking at that Baron, but none of their big solo target damage dealers were around, so no real way of getting that. Just making sure that there are no pink wards around so that they can then rotate around and clear it out with pink wards of their own.
Yeah, and something at least this game Triple Lol don't have to be too scared about is the instant rush down from Cloud9. I mean, they have wanted to go onto the Baron and take it as fast as possible, but they don't have the leads, they're not sporting Kha'Zix. They can't just nuke it and hope for the best. So at least they have that in the back pocket. At least they got that little blanket so that they just don't lose Baron from nowhere and then lose the game.
Yeah, because we've seen that a good few times. Baron really has been the point of contention over a lot of these closer games where one team will just go and do a Baron and then win the game. Even though the gold was maybe 1,000 or 2,000. And Cloud9 are looking to do that with Odamna and Ku here, but they haven't cleared that ward out. And this is sloppy play here from Cloud9. They have not cleared the Baron pit and have given Triple Lol complete vision on them.
And because this is low burst from these two players, there's no significant instant damage apart from the smite. Lee Sin actually gives them a much better opportunity to try and go for a steal, and they've had to back off. Ku's down to 50% HP, Odwamne is down to 75%, so they can't really go for anything else on top of that. Pinks go down into the middle lane, but I don't think you can just group up and go for that, guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the best option for them there, but that was a little sloppy out of Cloud9, I've got to admit. Normally they are far better than that. The trinket was not available for Vi, so whether they used it a little bit further out of the pit and didn't catch the ward in the back of the Baron pit remains to be seen, but that's not normal out of Cloud9 Europe.
It's definitely not, and Vi is not Elise and Shyvana is not Kha'Zix, so maybe that's what they were thinking, but I'm not really sure. Again, like, it can be just a game of battleships now with the wards, so you can just miss them in the Baron pit, especially when they're placed in different places, but, you know, it's just one of those things. It's not going to lose anything in the long run, but they have stalled out this game, which is fantastic for Triple Lol.
Yeah, they've got lanes pushing in towards Cloud9, which really is going to separate the team. And while Cloud9 want their team somewhat separated, being halfway across the map from each other does not favor them. That's not a position that they want to be in, because it means Triple will be able to rotate unless they get a pick.
Yeah, this is a position they want to be in. Can they block up the lantern? The answer is no, and Ocelote will go ahead and recall. Are there any objectives they can capitalize on? No.
No, Dragon not due for another minute, and we've already talked about how they don't have that immense single target damage. They do have the Blade of the Rune King on Shyvana, but that's not going to be enough to do it quickly. Health warning ping does go up on Forbidden off the ace in the hole, but not enough to take down that really quite tanky Gragas.
Indeed. He actually took a surprising amount of damage from that ace in the hole. Kind of a show of strength more than anything from Yuki60 over here. But again, rotations come through. See if they can beat them at their own game. Diode's death sentence not quite living up to his name just yet. And again, Cloud9 pushing down the middle lane. Culling coming across. Morden has come into the fight. He's got no method of escaping. Odwamne is already there. They actually go for this fight. Jax is coming from behind, trying to take out that back line. He's being kited around by that Karma, who was protecting the AD carry. Huge Gragas barrel. Yuki drops below 10% HP. Double kill comes in for Orianna. Ocelote goes huge, and JWoww finally collects the back line. Ku and Forbidden are still alive, but 3-for-1 trade. They're going to have to do something godly to go any further.
And that was the team fight that Cloud9 cannot take, and they chose to engage it. Their 5v5 team fight is not as good as Triple Lol. I do not know why they would engage that. They moved forward and allowed Jax directly into the Karma Lucian backline. Ku's going to try and re-engage.
Yeah, Assault and Battery, a huge shield from Barrier, and the ace in the hole will be blocked by Forbidden. That's, I'm not sure if his hitbox is bigger, but it should be.
A barrier and the shield from Ocelote in stereo allows them to survive through that. JWoww also picks up the dragon for himself, but I really do not understand Cloud9's attempt there at a team fight. Maybe they're just getting a little bit antsy and a little bit hesitant to really try and force Triple Lol around the map, but they let Jax into their backline, and he shredded through Lucian and Karma. Lucian nearly got a lot of damage off, but Counter-Strike was available to make sure he didn't end up dying, and Jax just shredded through everybody.
Yeah, Cloud9 know what their objective is, which is to try and win the game as fast as possible, but they don't know how to get there, and that clearly shows in the plays they're making, because we've seen them in previous games in this tournament stress specifically go for structured team fights that basically assist their team in their composition, and now they're just getting reckless and going for 5v5 fights, always evening up the goal total down to 3k, proportionally a lot less. Morden has been caught in the jungle, takes a significant chunk from him, from Odwamne, but not going to be too much.
And this is a result of the different champion playstyle from JWoww. Cloud9 have gone up against the heavy Shyvana Mundo compositions, which they've been able to pick Trundle into in most situations. Jax is a completely different pick when compared to those tanks. They get the hook onto Ku. This could be another pick for Triple Lol.
They're gonna get it. They expend the shockwave, but absolutely worth it.
Yeah, they pick that one up with ease and now turn the pressure on for themselves. They are down in gold still at Triple Lol, but they have all of the map pressure.
Yeah, and JWoww's found himself Odon there, maybe the other way around. Ocelote has arrived and the rest of the team as well. But Dial, they are pressuring this Baron. They have the team fight. They know if they clump up Cloud9, they're just going to win another team fight, especially when it's for, well, again, looking for this flank maneuver. And it does look like Triple Lol are going to just play it a little bit safe, pick away this blue buff and try and play the safer game.
Shockwave would have been available right as Ku spawned, so there was no way of that being a 5v5 had Triple Lol chosen to fight that. That would have likely gone in their favor had Cloud9 stacked, but what Triple Lol did accomplish there is good control over the Baron area. They got a good number of wards down, expended the Seeker the scanning trinkets out from Cloud9, so even though they pretty much immediately lose most of the control they had, they still do have a good few wards for another couple of minutes.
Yeah, but Ku dying right now, that was a 50-second death timer, so they really are starting to stack up for this stage in the game stress, and that's something that Cloud9 really have to be aware of. One slip-up, one big ace could mean they're losing an inhibitor and maybe a Nexus turret, but again, they're trying to find these small skirmish fights, a fight where Jax is not here, and the culling will clip Yuki as he retreats back to the inhibitor turret. The lower inner turret is potential for them to take down. Jax has arrived, going to clear out that pink ward in a good rotation, and it's all about this Baron dance.
And you can see the disengage there from Triple Lol between Dissonance and the Talisman of Ascension, which wasn't used in the end of all things. They have a good amount of movement speed to get away. And normally we talked about the synergy between Karma and Sivir, and Sivir's on the hunt provides a massive spike in movement speed alongside the Mantrid Inspire from Karma. And it just means that they're going to be moving at pretty similar speeds away from each other if they can get that dissonance on some key targets with the shield. So it's one of those things that Cloud9 are going to attempt to chase, but without really expending Dragon's Descent or the Assault and Battery, it's going to be difficult for them to pick off any of the members in Triple Lol with a head-on engagement.
Yeah, and typically you don't pick Jax because he's amazing at team fighting, but he's doing so well he can do that anyway. And plus, it's going to need Karma and Jarnan to try and keep JWoww from decimating their back line, and that may not even work out. Last time we saw them both committed to try and stopping from Jax from, well, killing them, and Karma could only stop that from happening for a little while, and even then, if they slip up just even so slightly, JWoww will instantly kill them. So even though they make that commitment, it doesn't always work out. So what type of fight can they go for?
Defensive items have been picked up here, and that's really how these fights are going to end up playing out. I mean, you can see the Banshee's Veil has been on Caitlyn for a while, and you asked, what type of fight do they go for? I feel like Cloud9 have to skirmish. There's no other option. The only other way is a good flank out the side from Odamna, perhaps, with a very good barrel out of Forbidden, but it looks like they're trying to two-man Baron, but the rest of the team is getting chased down.
Oh, Insect onto Forbidden, he will flash out, Death Sentence lands again, not even sure how that's possible, the box has been used, another huge shockwave, Odrane is getting chunked, Forbidden has managed to escape this team fight, Defiance comes across with that Mantrid shield, Jarman and his ally of Ku have re-entered the middle lane, and no casualties, but still very scary.
There was one casualty in that fight, and that was the Baron. It was taken by C9 during that, and that was an incredibly risky play. I cannot express how insane the play to go and two-man Baron while the rest of your team is getting attacked is. That is incredible confidence out of Cloud9. At 40 minutes into the game, that could have been a game-ending decision from Cloud9, but it might have just become a game-winning decision.
Yeah, it was so sneaky, I didn't even catch it towards the end of that teamfight stress, and I was looking at I was like, how did Ku take so much damage from jungle camps? And saw that the Baron had actually fallen. So right now, with a Baroned up team, they can definitely go for these, well, I'm not even sure if they can definitely go for teamfight stress, because we've spoken about how good Triple Lol operate later on into the latter parts of the game, and they've already reached that stage, 40 minutes in.
They've got to make sure all the waves are pushing for Cloud9. I mean, Cloud9 obviously have to ensure that their waves are pushing in towards Triple Lol. It's difficult for them to find the skirmishes until they can really spread Triple Lol across the map, but Yuki might be caught.
They're gonna try and find themselves a pick. The Lancers come down. He's getting completely denied. He flashes and will die as he's traveling towards his ally of Diode. That might be the game-losing pick right here. Cloud9 push on into the inhibitor. There's not a snowball's chance in hell they can defend this without their AD carry. And they will rotate up to the top lane, going to take some damage. Q is so tanky. Diode will be just locking him up. He might have to go for this team fight regardless. Shockwave only lands onto one. Morden backs off using his safeguards, and he will just try and chip down this turret. Odame has been slowed down and taken down by Morden. And Ocelote is being focused by Q, but there's no real follow-up. 1-for-1 trade will be the overall total.
It's just such a difficult spot for Cloud9. They got the pick that they wanted, but tried to tank up the tower. And even though the Shockwave didn't quite hit the mark, it split Cloud9 again. And that was the point that they needed to be a little bit more grouped by the fact that they could burst down the tower very quickly and then take another inhibitor. With one inhibitor down, yes, they now have the map control with the Baron buff as well, so they're very strong. But Triple Lol will be able to clear the waves in this middle lane. Remember, inhibitors on the preseason patch only spawn minions in the wave the inhibitor has been killed in. So with only one wave of super minions, Triple Lol can just stay as 5 right now, make sure all of their lanes have been pushed out as they're doing now. You can see them clearing the waves, stick together and start pressuring Cloud9 for another 5v5.
Yeah, because they're rapidly approaching always full item builds. I mean, Caitlyn just needs one more to complete her set. So they're not in a bad position. 370 from Yuki, 411 from Ocelote, but that's also matched by 413 from Forbidden. You've seen the pace of this game. Only 16 kills in 42 minutes has resulted in ridiculous farm totals.
Yeah, it's welcome to preseason, guys. This is back to season 2 by the feel of it, as I'm sure Ocelote knows all too well about long games. Thinking back to perhaps the games from SK against CLG, I believe that was at NIM, good long time ago. However, Cloud9 are a very new team, weren't around in season 2, so interesting to see how a new team is faring in this preseason, which is somewhat reminiscent of previous seasons. And another team trying to take a page out of Fnatic's playbook, stacking up in that bush to try and get a pick, but they might get out-rotated here by Cloud9, but with a 5v5, we already know they tend to go in favor of Triple Lol, unless they get caught.
Yeah, everyone is excited to see how Cloud9 do in this tournament and how they do in different situations. Specifically this one, this is the first time we've seen Cloud9 go into a longer, kind of drawn-out game. Otherwise, the rest of the games have just been fast-paced, them getting the early advantage or regaining the advantage and just closing out the game. This time it's been stalled out, and they're going to have to make way more decisions in different places of the game they wouldn't have had to do previously. Voidor gets caught by a Diode. That's forced the team fight, or forced Diode completely getting melted. 1-for-0 trade off the back of a catch.
JWoww moved towards the middle lane to clear it out because the super minions are pushing in, which meant that they couldn't answer with the massive damage, and here come Cloud9.
Assault and battery onto Ocelote, will land the shockwave onto 2, but they are so tanky, they'll just take that. Oh, huge Gragas barrel melts Ocelote, and Yuki will try his best to take down Q, but the rest of his team is destroying this inhibitor. Morna is trying desperately along with JWoww, 3 versus 5. This is going to have to be a valiant attempt. They're going to go for it. Counter-Strike lands onto 3. Odame just trying to chunk down the Nexus turret. Yuki has dropped JWoww in a bad way, and this will be the second Nexus turret falling, and the first game will go to Cloud9 in this best of 5 series.
What a game to begin our best of 5 between Cloud9 and Team Lololol, which is Ocelote's new team alongside JWoww and Yuki, Morden, and Dude. What a fantastic